Welcome to the HOA Real Talk podcast. Real Talk is for homeowners and board members of homeowners associations. Most HOA podcasts are from attorneys or property managers. Real Talk is by a homeowner and board member and focuses on helping homeowners navigate living in a deed-restricted community. It also helps board members understand and become better at their role as a volunteer and leader of the community. The HOA Real Talk Show is brought to you by Excellence in Action Podcasting. So let's be about it and get this show started. Please welcome the host of Real Talk, Mike Sancho.
Hello everybody and welcome back to HOA Real Talk, where our goal is what? To keep the hood looking good and our property values high. In today's episode, I want to talk about security cameras. I want to talk about the doorbell cameras, your cameras that you put above your garage door, above your back door, on your front patio, back patio, all those cameras that you are installing. Now let me start by saying this. This is my opinion. This is by no means a legal piece of advice. I do not provide legal advice. Do not come here looking and say, well, Mike at HOA Real Talk said. No, this is my opinion. So remember that, because this is a very sticky subject, and it's something that a lot of HOAs are now being faced with. A lot of neighbor on neighbor, homeowner on homeowner disputes around what? Your security cameras. So let's jump right in and let's start by saying this. I've done a lot of research. I looked at and read a bunch of different blogs about your right to install security cameras, whether you're installing security cameras infringing, does the video camera infringe on your neighbor's privacy, so on and so forth, because I want to be educated on this topic, because not only do I serve on my HOA board, I also have security cameras that I have installed. And majority, if not all of the blogs that I have read, newsletters that I have read, videos that I looked at, all the different features describing security cameras and the do's and don'ts, all of them seem to get one thing wrong. The thing they're getting wrong is that they're saying that homeowners are installing these cameras to prevent trespassing and crimes from happening. Folks, that is outright a myth. Security cameras do not prevent crimes from happening. Let me repeat. Security cameras do not prevent crimes from happening. They're just like the police department, your sheriff's office, police officers, sheriff's deputies, FBI. All these folks do not prevent crimes from happening. They react to crimes that have already taken place, and they solve crimes. They do not prevent crimes. So your security camera, your doorbell camera, your spotlight motion sensor activated cameras do not prevent trespassing or crimes from happening. You want further evidence of that? There's so many posts on social media. We see it on the news all the time. Somebody walks up to somebody's property and steals their Amazon package. And they caught it on what? A doorbell camera. Tell me how that prevented a crime. Someone please tell me that a crime was prevented. It wasn't. Two crimes actually took place. Trespassing and theft. So they don't prevent crime. You know what your security cameras do? They record evidence of a crime that was committed. That's what the security camera does. So yes, it does provide a sense of security, because if you're home and your alarm goes off, the notification on your security camera goes off, there's something in the backyard, you're able to take a look at it. Maybe it's a raccoon going through your garbage cans. Maybe it's somebody who's just walking past your backyard is lost or trespassing, or someone's up to something nefarious. Whatever it is, right? It does give you a sense of security. But I wanted to dispel the myth that these security cameras prevent trespassing and theft and crimes from happening. They do not. So, with that said, let's jump into the right to install a security camera. As a homeowner, I ask you to do this. Before you go installing a security camera, find out the laws for your state. Find out your state statutes, right? I've said it before, there's over 150,000 homeowner associations across the United States. They're in all different states. I'm based out of South Florida. Our laws, our state statutes are different from the one in California, Iowa, New York, California, Nevada, so on and so forth. So check with your state first on what your legal rights and what you can and cannot do in installing a security camera. It's a smart move. It's a wise thing to do. Do a little bit of research. So, but you do have the right to install a security camera. Now, when you install a security camera, a couple of things will happen, right? You're going to take a view of an area. That's what happens. So if I'm putting a security camera in, I'm installing security cameras on my home, the 3 areas I'm looking to mainly secure, so to speak, and put those cameras are, I'm going to take a visual shot of somebody coming up towards my back door. I want video shot somewhere along the lines of around my front door and around my garage doors. So my entrances and my exit ways, I'm trying to get video surveillance on those areas. Now, unless I put the security camera in a tree or on a post facing my back door, chances are I put the security camera on my back wall somewhere facing outwards. Right? And I'm going to try to face it towards the most likely area someone would approach my back door from. In doing so, I may capture a portion of my neighbor's backyard. That's okay. All right, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later on, but that's okay. I'm going to catch some areas of my neighbor's property. Now, if I put something above my garage door, seeing someone approaching my garage door, I may capture video of my neighbor's property next to me and across the street. And if I'm capturing my front door area with my security camera, I may capture the neighbor across the street or the neighbor next to me. I'm going to catch some areas of property that may not be mine. Now, here's a couple of things you should do to be mindful of that. Try to not infringe upon your neighbor's property. Right? It's a cool thing to do, right? Be cool and try to capture your property. All right? Now, if you feel as if your neighbor has a security camera that's infringing on your rights to privacy, you have to understand the expectation of privacy. Now remember, I am not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. By no means. Check with your local authority. Speak to an attorney. Do not take my opinion as fact. That's my disclaimer. I can't say it enough. However, if I'm suspecting that my neighbor's video cameras are violating my rights to privacy by recording a piece of my property, understand this. If I can stand in your front yard and see it, there's really no expectation of privacy. So if I'm standing in my backyard and I just happen to look left and right and I see my neighbor's yards and my security camera captures that same vision, there's no expectation of privacy. However, if my neighbor has a fence and I put the camera above the fence line to still capture a portion of the yard, I may be violating their rights to privacy. You do not have expectation of privacy for things that your plain eyesight can see. Right? So a lot of complaints are coming into HOAs where they want the HOA to step in because my neighbor's violating my rights to privacy, the camera's pointing at my property, they're videotaping a portion of my property, so on and so forth. Okay? Listen, there's no expectation to privacy for what I can see from plain sight from in front of my house or standing in my backyard. However, if my camera is purposely pointed at your house, you may have legal grounds to stand on. You may be in the right to say I'm infringing on your right to privacy. Right? Examples of that. If I were to stand in my bedroom window and look across the alleyway to my neighbor's bedroom window, and her bedroom window is wide open and she's standing there butt naked, and I'm standing in my window just looking out the window and capture her butt naked, I'm not a peeping Tom. There is no right to privacy expectation. She's standing in front of the window. It's like me walking down the street and I just look at a house and I look over there and I look into the window and I see into the house. There's no expectation to right of privacy in general. However, if she put curtains up and then I try to use a camera to zoom in, things of that nature, then I'm violating rights to privacy. Okay? So just what mere fact that you have a window does not provide you with the right to privacy. Putting blinds up, putting a curtain up, right? blacking out the windows. Those are things that say, hey, you're giving me clear signals. This is a area or space that I have an expectation of privacy. Standing in front of my window butt-ass naked with the window wide open with no blinds or curtains or blacked out windows to hide me, I'm not creating a space where I'm have a right to expected privacy. Okay, but again, check with an attorney, check with the authorities on what those rights are. So how do you go ahead and prevent these arguments and neighborly disputes from happening from a homeowner's perspective and from a board member's perspective? First of all, majority of HOAs, majority of associations, their role is to what? Keep the hood looking good and property values high. They're not here to get in between you and your personal dispute with your neighbor. Most and the majority of HOAs will avoid that. Right? Here's why homeowners are going to the HOA for that. Because they've called the police and the police have said, listen, sorry, you're wrong. They have the right to install that camera and videotape that area. It's not an infringement upon your rights. So what happens is now you're upset because you didn't get the answer you wanted to from the police. Now you go to the HOA and you want the HOA to step in. My advice to board members, do not step in. That is not something you do as a board, and that's not something your association should handle. That's disputes between neighbors. Stay out of it. That's the best advice I can give you. Do not try to interpret law. Do not try to say, hey, refer this to your local sheriff's department or police department and tell the homeowner that. You need to call the police, call the sheriff's department. And you know what? They're probably going to tell you, we did and they did nothing. Well, let me share this with you. If you called the sheriff's department or your local police department and they did nothing, because there is nothing there for them to do. So if they did nothing, what do you expect the HOA to do? The HOA can't do anything. Speak to your attorney and handle it in that manner. Now, there are a couple of things that you should do if you suspect that your neighbor is videotaping your property, right? Number one, have a cool, calm, nice, genuine conversation with your neighbor and say, hey, neighbor, I noticed you installed security cameras and I kind of think it's pointing on my property. Hey, can we look at your feed and possibly adjust the camera angle? Because I just don't feel comfortable you recording my property. I don't see majority of neighbors. I don't see the majority of neighbors saying no, right? There are going to be some that are just jerks and was like, screw you, mind your business, right? I'm not doing it. But have that conversation with them. If you feel that they're directly pointing their camera at you, number one, that's a dick move on the owner of the camera. But number two is just have that conversation. Hey man, can you move your camera, right? Then it's obvious that I'm not installing it for security purposes. I'm installing it for other purposes, other nefarious activity, right? So have those conversations with your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, I just don't feel comfortable that you're capturing, the angle of your camera is capturing some, like a portion of my property, and I may be outside tanning in my bikini. I just don't feel comfortable, right? Do not accuse. Don't be accusatory. Just have the conversation. Tell them how you feel and try to resolve it in that manner. Now, I will tell you this. It may be a good thing that they're capturing a portion of your property, because you know what? You're going to want that video if your house gets broken into. Then all of a sudden, oh man, can I go to my neighbor and they possibly have evidence. They have that camera that caught the alleyway between our houses and caught a portion of my backyard. And if you're a jerk to me and you just accuse me and everything, I'm not giving you the evidence, right? I'm just going to be like, nah, right? So it's about being cordial with your neighbors, being neighborly, and have those conversations, right? Now, if you're going to install video cameras, have a conversation with your neighbor. Say, hey, neighbor, I'm installing a video camera. The angle's here. Hey, do you mind if I capture a portion of your backyard? It may be beneficial to you. So here's the view that I have. I want to capture this general area, but I may capture a portion of your backyard. I'll try to restrict the view as much as possible, right? Let your neighbor know you're installing security cameras. Ask your neighbor if they would like you to record a portion of their property, right? So maybe your garage camera, the one above your garage door, will capture their driveway as well. And you say, hey, maybe a safety thing, hey, I'll capture both driveways if that's what you'd like, right? Neighbors would say, yeah, you're not going to have this really big debate on it if at first and up front you have conversations with your neighbor on what your intent is. If your intent, however, is because your neighbor's always violating HOA rules, then you know what? I don't think you have a legal ground to stand on in installing that security camera. Right? If you're doing it with the intent to catch a bad neighbor violating HOA rules and policy, you're just a jerk. You're just as bad, and you're going to make matters worse. You are actually not helping the situation out. All right? So think about the reasons for installing security cameras, right? Legally, you may have a problem. If you're installing it just for security purposes, the state cannot stop you, right? Most state laws, if not all of them, say you have the legal right to install a security camera. If you're installing security camera to catch your hot, sexy neighbor, right? Yeah, come on, man. Come on, girl. Right? Come on. That's not cool, right? That is not cool, right? If you're installing a security camera because you want to capture your neighbor, undressing in the bed, come on, you're violating laws, right? It should be for the right reasons. So let's recap. Number one, security cameras, your doorbell camera, your garage door camera, your different security cameras, surveillance cameras, do not prevent crimes. They record evidence of crimes that have been committed. So let's get that straight. Number two, have a conversation with the neighbor before you go ahead and install the cameras. Okay, have the conversation, see what the common areas are. Be a good neighbor and try to filter out areas that your neighbor don't want. Do not violate your neighbor's right to the expectation of privacy. So if I have a fence that I installed, do not put the camera above my fence line to record beyond my fence. You violated my expectation to privacy. Okay? If you feel like your neighbor's recording you and it's not cool and you don't want to record, have a neighborly conversation with them, with that neighbor. Do not be accusatory. Have a conversation. Say, hey, I feel uncomfortable. Here's why, blah, blah. Be neighborly. If you're installing the camera for other reasons, for any reason outside of security purposes, uncool, don't do it. You should not be doing it, and you probably don't have legal grounds to stand on. Now, proving that's a whole different story, but you don't. Now, the last bit of advice I will give you before I close this out, right? I forgot on the recap, right? If you called the police or local law enforcement and they said there's nothing they can do, do not go to your HOA to ask them to do something. HOA should not be getting involved in owner disputes. They should only be doing what? The role of their job is to what? Keep the hood looking good and property values high. Not to get involved in neighborly disputes and owner disputes. If local law enforcement said there's nothing they can do, chances are the HOA has nothing they can do for you either. And the last bit of advice I'll give you before I close this out. If you feel like, for example, my camera is capturing a portion of my neighbor's backyard and they feel like they don't want it captured and they've asked me politely and I've said, listen, it's nothing I can do. That's the way the camera comes. I've turned it all the way over. Then, you know what? Install some tall shrubs. Install some plants. Install something to block that view. See, it's very simple. But at the end of the day, it's not a violation to have a surveillance camera installed, a security camera installed. Number two, it's not a violation if they capture a portion of your property. It is wrong and it's a violation to some extent or violates a law. And remember, this is not a legal opinion. This is not a law enforcement opinion. But if they're recording an area that has an expected right to privacy, like a bedroom with blinds, right, on the window, a bedroom with the windows with the curtains pulled, a fence, and then I install the camera above the fence line, so on and so forth. That's my spiel on security cameras. I hope that helps. But, at the end of the day, it's all about us being neighborly, not being accusatory, and having true dialogue with our neighbors with a nice mellow tone to try to resolve issues. Because at the end of the day, keep your hood looking good and your property values high. Until the next time, be well and be safe, my friends.
The views and discussions heard on this podcasts are the opinions of the host and guests and are not to be taken as legal advice. You do not go on social media for your legal advice, so do not come to HOA Real Talk either. However, if you do go on social media for legal advice, all I can say is you're screwed.